Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bruce Williams channel. Today I'm very excited to share one of my all-time favorite watch designs. This is my personal Santos de Cartier in the large size. This retails at $7,450. And you might be looking at this and going, Bruce, that looks like an old man watch. Like, I don't get why you're so excited about this Cartier. What's the matter with you, man? Well, let me try to explain my love of this piece and why it's so special to me. I might sound like a little bit of a sap and a fool and a tool, and that's fine. You can laugh at me. I don't take myself too seriously, but I do love this watch quite a bit. And so let's begin with the history of this piece. It has the longest running history out of any wristwatch on the market. And it's really quite fascinating. So back in 1904, well over 100 years ago, there was a Brazilian aviator living in Paris named Alberto Santos Dumont, and he asked Louis Cartier of Cartier to design him a watch that he could wear as he piloted a dirigible over the streets of Paris. And that's interesting because at the time, men wore pocket watches. They had large pocket watches. And only ladies that were into fashion, the latest fashion, wore any type of a wristwatch. And so Alberto Santos Dumont was the first to kind of popularize a men's sport piece that you could wear on wrist. So this is the design from 1904 from Louis Cartier. And you guys can see how much this modern version of the Santos resembles the original version from 1904. And so if you're looking at this piece going, hey, that looks like an old man watch, that looks dated. Well, yes, it does, because the design is well over 100 years old. And I would say that it has a timeless elegance to it that Cartier really excels in. And if you value history, if you value first, if you value, I hate to use the word, but if you value icons in the watch segment, well, the Santos is one of the prime examples out there. And I'm kind of drawn to the icons. I have a collection where my top 3 watches that I wear is a Submariner, a Speedmaster, and the Santos. And I absolutely love this trio. It's fantastic. And the Santos might be the best design of the bunch. And so I kind of consider this my dressy piece, even though this is the first sport watch in history, predating the Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso. So again, I just love that. And I think you have to enjoy the design. You have to enjoy the history to really get the fullest out of the Santos de Cartier. And Cartier has been making Santos watches for, so many decades. There are a ton out there. And right now there are several sizes, several styles, several materials. And there is also one called the Santos Dumont, which is a little bit closer to that original 1904 design that I think looks absolutely gorgeous. And they recently did a limited edition that is one of the most beautiful watches that I've ever seen. And I'm so tempted to try to hunt one down. I think it would be very difficult to find. I think they've all sold out rather quickly. But anyways, let's talk about this exact Santos in the larger size. I'll put the dimensions here on the screen. I know Cartier says this is more like a 39.8 or something, but I measured 38 millimeters of diameter. It's nice and thin at 9.5, and that is the tallest dimension on the watch. And it's a little bit difficult to measure because you guys will notice we have just an arcing form, a natural curve here to the case. And so it just sits so nicely on wrist. It follows the form of your wrist and disappears. This is my most comfortable watch, and it's not close. For reference, my wrists are 7.25 inches in circumference, and it has a lovely fit and finish that is absolutely appropriate for a $7,000 watch. And you pair the fit and the finish with the timeless elegance, with the design, with the history, and then you throw in some modern elements and upgrades like the quick switch technology for taking off the bracelet and putting it on the complementary leather strap with the metal deployant. And then you also take into account the Smart Link technology. So you just press this hidden section, this flush section on the underside of the link. You can pop the pin out and change your bracelet, change the links out in just a number, 30 seconds to a minute, really, if you're just taking out one link. It's very easy. So I love everything about it, from the modern upgrades to the fit and the finish, the timeless design and history. It's just such a satisfying piece. And really, I had a overseas, I don't know, several months ago. I bought it in 2020 and I enjoyed it for about 7 months. And then I just felt like I would enjoy the Santos more and I didn't want to overlap. And so I sold a Vacheron Constantin. And that watch, I will say, and I want to make this clear, that is a nicer watch than this Cartier. But isn't it weird? I enjoy the Cartier more. And I know some of you just won't believe me there, but it's true. And I think you have to experience certain watches in person. And once you do, you go, you know what? This watch is way better than I thought it would be. Or this watch is not quite as great as everybody says it is. And so anyways, guys, I'm just trying to emphasize how much I love the Santos and how special it is, and how this one is a little bit underrated and undervalued, even though it's starting to climb in popularity. And the Richemont Group is increasing the retail price quite a bit over a short amount of time. I have a friend, Evan, of the You're Terrific YouTube channel, who is another Santos fan. And he said in one of his videos that I've watched probably, 5, 6, 7 times, that if Cartier had slowly increased the retail price over the years, over the decades, and this was now a $20,000 watch, very similar to the overseas, right around the $20,000 retail price segment, that nobody would bat an eye, right? This has the name cachet, this has the history, this has the fit and the finish. I thought about that, and I think he's absolutely spot on. This represents a value, almost a steal at its retail price. Cartier could and probably should be charging a whole lot more for this piece. And I think they would be justified in doing so. So let's talk about the negative elements here, and then we'll wrap up the video with some final thoughts. But I think the big thing, if you're considering a Santos, the biggest drawback here is the bezel. It is a scratch magnet. Even if you're very careful, you could look at this wrong, you could sneeze wrong, and put some hairline wear marks in the polished bezel. And if you opt for a precious metal variation or the two-tone, it's going to be even easier to scratch with the softer metal. So there's just no way around that. It's due to the nature of the design, the flow here, the high wear area, the high polish. It is a recipe for scratches and hairline wear marks, and there's just, again, no way of getting around that. So if you're going to be buying this piece, you have to be prepared to see a little bit of wear and tear there. And I know some guys will take a Cape Cod cloth and touch up their bezel from time to time. I'm not going to be doing that. Maybe I'll replace it every several years or at service. I'm not sure, but just be aware of that aspect of this piece. Then the only other area that I would want to mention is the crystal, the sapphire crystal, which has a lovely arc to it, a form that creates quite a bit of distortion at certain angles. I love that. I think that's so great, but it could use better anti-reflective treatment because I want to see the details of the dial to a higher degree of clarity. It's not distracting. It's not poor. You do want some light play, some visual interest off of the crystal. But man, you look at this silvered opaline dial that's also curved, the silver date disc, the railroad track, the dimensional reflective black Romans, the blued sword hands, even the little signature, the micro signature in the 7 Roman. It's so great to spend some time with a loop or a macro lens and take a look at the detail work. And so it would be nicer to see it under better anti-reflective treatment. So just in closing, let me share with you my experience with the movement. This is an in-house movement called the Manufacture Cartier 1847. And essentially, it's almost the same as an ETA 2892A2, which Cartier used to use in the Santos for a spell. Now this is in-house, 23 joules, 42 hours of power reserve. I would like that to be higher. I think with modern in-house movements, we're looking at 50 as a minimum, and so 42 is just not cutting it anymore. We also have a 4 hertz beat frequency, so 28,800 beats per hour. And I will report that this is consistently about +1 to +2 seconds per day. Very, very well dialed in and accurate, and I enjoy that. And you will not be able to see it because we have a closed case back. This is a sport piece and not a dress piece, even though it is very dressy, very elegant, very beautiful. Now, my last thought here is just how I'm almost in awe of how Cartier has taken a square form that's usually dominant on wrist, and they've blended curvaceous elements to make it incredibly comfortable on wrist. So you look at this, and the dominant finish is a satin brushing, and then we have very linear links here, horizontal links. Obviously, the square form of the case. If you look at the crown, that is done in a very angular fashion with a synthetic spinal with facets in it set in the crown. So there are some very dominant rectilinear elements here, but then we have the flow, the curve of the watch, and then the bezel, how that curves. The lugs are rather delicate, and it ends up just being so much fun visually, and it's almost fascinating how comfortable this dominant form can wear on wrist, and just how it looks great. Whether I'm wearing a t-shirt or a polo or a button-up shirt, it's versatile, it's got the history, it's got everything that I enjoy about it. And so maybe you've seen that throughout this video. Maybe I've been overly positive. I'm known to do that with my favorite pieces, with my personal watches. I can be a little bit biased, although I try to highlight the positives as well as the negatives. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the video, and please reach out if you have any questions. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch today. That means a lot. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.